Hey you, welcome to Byte-Sized Tech, your weekend edition of what's trending in tech and gadgets.
Great to be here.
We're doing a quick, fun rundown of the top 5 tech stories making waves this week. Think of it as your signal boost through all the tech noise.
Sounds good. Yeah, lots happening, from AI images to the next Nintendo console. It's quite a mix.
Exactly. Our mission, give you the clear, no-nonsense takeaway. Ready?
Absolutely. Let's dive in.
All right, first up, OpenAI. They're really shaking things up again, this time with GPT-4's new image generation. Feels like DALL-E was just getting started, and now this.
Yeah, it's basically embedding that image creation capability right inside ChatGPT now.
Okay, so who gets it?
Well, right away, it's the default for ChatGPT Plus Pro and Team subscribers. Enterprise and EDU accounts are coming soon.
And what if you really like the old DALL-E?
You can still get to it. It's available through the DALL-E GPT. But yeah, 4s is the new standard. The big thing is it seems much better at, understanding what you actually want the image to look like.
So maybe fewer pictures with 7 fingers on one hand? That's progress.
Hopefully.
I remember one of the biggest headaches with AI images was getting text right. Signs or labels in the picture just looked like gibberish. Has GPT-4o fixed that?
It's definitely a big improvement. Yeah, that mangled text was a real issue. Now, GPT-4o handles it much better, especially if you give it really clear, structured prompts.
Structured prompts? Like how?
Someone online mentioned using something called the PATH framework. It stands for Purpose, Audience, Topic, Hallmark. Basically giving the AI a really specific checklist.
Wow.
And when you do that, the text in the images tends to come out looking, much more like actual text, cleaner, more professional.
Okay, so being specific helps. But it's not just about the first try, is it?
Okay.
I heard you can actually chat with it to tweak the image.
Exactly. And that's, I think, a really key advantage. If the first image isn't quite right, maybe the lighting's off or you want a different angle, you just tell ChatGPT in plain English.
Oh.
And it tries to refine it based on your feedback. It feels less like programming and more like collaborating.
That sounds way more intuitive. Less need to be a prompt engineer just to get a decent result.
Right. It lowers the barrier to entry a bit.
Now, with this kind of power becoming more accessible, there've got to be some ethical considerations, right? Safeguards.
Definitely. That's crucial. OpenAI has built in some important limits. For instance, it won't generate realistic images of minors, and it's designed to avoid impersonating private individuals.
Okay, that's good. What about famous people?
Public figures can actually opt out, request their likeness isn't used. Plus, the images have C2PA metadata, kind of like a digital watermark saying, AI made this.
A watermark? Okay.
And they have internal tools looking for abuse. It's an ongoing effort trying to balance the power with responsibility,
Good to know they're thinking about that. So what are the early users saying? When the rubber meets the road, how's it working out?
Well, it's a bit of a mixed bag online, which you'd probably expect. Some Plus users are reporting limits, maybe like 5 images per hour.
5 an hour.
But others seem to be getting more, so it might be dynamic, maybe based on server load or usage patterns. There's even some talk the system might tell you when your cooldown period ends.
A polite AI telling you to take a break.
Yeah.
What about the actual image quality compared to the old DALL-E? Is it a clear upgrade?
Depends who you ask. Some early reactions were not great. Some people called the results horrible initially.
Ouch.
But others are really impressed, saying it's a significant step up. It probably depends on the prompt, the complexity, and maybe just getting used to it.
Fair enough. Any other issues? Availability?
Yeah, there were some reports, particularly from users in Canada, having trouble accessing it consistently. Sometimes it might default back to the older DALL-E, likely just due to heavy traffic.
Server load woes?
Yeah.
The price of popularity.
And just a quick note, the image generation is apparently also accessible via the Sora UI if you have access to that. You just choose image instead of video.
Oh, interesting. So it's popping up in different places.
Though there's still some chatter on Reddit about whether that's definitely the new model or still the old one in that interface, so maybe some clarification needed there.
Gotcha. So overall, this feeds into the bigger question. Is AI image generation actually, good now?
It's getting seriously capable. But one point that keeps coming up is how much the user's skill still matters. You need to be good at guiding it.
The human element is still key.
Exactly. Someone shared a funny example online, asking it to make a picture involving molehills and a dog. And the AI actually seemed to understand the humor and the concept. That shows a kind of growing intelligence.
That is pretty smart.
But on the flip side, there's still this feeling, especially with AI-written text, that it often feels a bit fake. repetitive.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Lacks that spark.
So the takeaway seems to be creative with the AI. Be the shepherd, not just the sheep waiting for a perfect result.
Be the shepherd, not the sheep. I like that. Okay, let's pivot. Big news for gamers. Nintendo Switch 2. The rumor mill has been churning forever, but we finally have something official.
That's right. Official announcement. It's launching June 5th, 2025.
June 5th, 2025. Mark those calendars. And the price.
The suggested retail is around AU $699.95, so roughly in that ballpark globally, you'd expect.
Okay, AU $700-ish. That's definitely an investment. What upgrades are we getting for that?
Some really interesting ones. The Joy-Cons are redesigned. Joy-Con 2, they're calling them. They use magnetic connectors now.
Magnetic instead of sliding.
Yep. And get this, they can apparently be used as a mouse in some games.
Whoa, a mouse. How would that even work?
We'll have to see. But it's a unique feature. The console itself gets more processing power, obviously, for better visuals on a bigger, more vibrant screen.
Better screen, more power, standard upgrade stuff. What else?
The dock is redesigned, too. Rounded edges, apparently has an internal fan for better cooling.
A fan in the dock.
And it supports 4K output to a TV for select games. Emphasis on select.
Ah, okay. Not necessarily everything in 4K then. And the kickstand. The original was a bit flimsy.
Much better, it seems. More like the Switch OLED model. Runs the length of the console, looks way more solid, multiple locking positions.
Thank goodness for that kickstand upgrade. Okay, mouse controls are weird but interesting. What about games? Can I play my old Switch games?
Good news there. Yes, it's compatible with existing Switch libraries.
That's huge. And new stuff.
They announced a game called Drag X Drive. It's a 3v3 online game, and it specifically uses those Joy-Con 2 mouse controls for steering, speed, tricks, even dunks, whatever that means in context. That's coming winter 2025.
Using the mouse controls right out of the gate. Bold. Anything else at launch?
There's a unique title called Nintendo Switch 2 Welcome Tour. It's basically an interactive demo to show off the console's features, but you actually have to buy it from the eShop.
A paid demo. Huh. Nintendo marches to its own drum, I guess. What other games are confirmed? The list looked massive.
It's pretty stacked. You've got enhanced Switch 2 editions of Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, big third-party stuff like Cyberpunk 2077, Ultimate Edition, Hogwarts Legacy.
Okay, why?
Mario Kart World is listed, Sid Meier's Civilization 7, Nintendo Switch 2 Edition, Street Fighter 6, Fortnite naturally, plus new titles like Project Zero 7, Star Wars Outlaws, Hollow Knight Silksong.
Silksong. People will lose their minds if that actually launches with it.
Right. And a bunch of others, RPGs, remasters, sports titles. It's a really long list covering lots of genres.
That's a strong lineup, mixing upgrades and new stuff. The redesigned Joy-Cons definitely look different in the trailer.
Yeah, visually distinct, sleeker, maybe, and that magnetic connection is the main functional change you can see.
Now, despite the hype for the new hardware, I've seen some grumbling online about Nintendo Switch Online, the current subscription service. What's the sentiment there?
Yeah. Let's just say mixed. Might be generous for some users on Reddit. Some call it outright trash.
Oof, why?
Common complaints are things like glitches, like invisible items in Mario Kart 8 Deluxe Online. Also, a feeling that the expansion pack DLC isn't compelling enough value, especially if you don't own Nintendo's biggest hits that benefit from it.
Right, the value calculation changes if you're not playing Zelda or Mario Kart constantly.
Exactly. And other frustrations pop up too.
Like what?
The big one is still the lack of a proper integrated achievement system. Having things like voice chat or other features stuck in a separate phone app is still a sore point for many.
Yeah, the phone app thing feels dated.
And then there are the usual discussions about game pricing and the cost of the online service itself. So while the hardware looks promising, the online ecosystem still seems to be an area where Nintendo could improve, according to a vocal part of the user base.
Definitely food for thought for Nintendo as they launch this new generation. Okay, story number 3, Meta. Facebook's parent company. They're going all in on AI.
All in is putting it mildly. They're projecting they'll end 2025 with something like 1.3 million GPUs.
1.3 million GPUs.
Yep, and they're backing that up with an investment somewhere between $60 and $65 billion in their AI efforts.
Billion with a B. 65 billion. Wow. What is driving that kind of spending?
Well, Mark Zuckerberg highlighted their sheer scale: over 3.3 billion people using at least one Meta app daily. That's a massive potential audience for AI features.
True, the user base is enormous.
Their goal with Meta AI isn't just a generic assistant. They want it to be really personalized, adapting to your context, your interests, maybe even your personality. They're talking about fun surprises coming this year.
Personalized AI across Facebook, Instagram, WhatsApp,
Mm.
that could be huge. How far along are they?
Zuckerberg made a bold claim that Meta AI is already used by more people than any other AI assistant. Whether that counts brief interactions or deep usage, who knows? But it shows their ambition, and a lot of their hiring focus is on AI now.
And they're not just buying standard stuff, right? They're partnering on the hardware side, too.
Exactly. They're working closely with AMD to optimize AI performance. Interestingly, they stated that all the online inference, the real-time processing for their Llama 405B model, is running on AMD chips right now.
All of it on AMD. That's significant. A big win for AMD in the AI space.
It really is. It suggests Meta is diversifying its suppliers and perhaps driving competition in the AI chip market, which has been pretty dominated by NVIDIA.
So where is all that $65 billion actually going? Is it all just for flashy new AI features?
It's spread across generative AI, their existing non-AI infrastructure, and core AI research. They say the majority still supports the core business, but admit it's hard to perfectly separate since their infrastructure is becoming so AI-centric.
Right, AI is probably touching everything now.
The commitment is clear, though. Build leading foundation models, build applications on top, and invest heavily in both training these huge models and running them efficiently for billions of users.
Makes sense. So they have this massive user base. What are they learning about how people are actually using Meta AI right now?
It's still early days, but they're seeing different patterns. On WhatsApp, people use it more for like information seeking, asking educational questions, even for emotional support sometimes.
Emotional support via WhatsApp AI. Interesting. And Facebook, Instagram.
There, it leans more towards creative tasks, brainstorming ideas, getting help writing captions or posts, doing research for content.
So different use cases for different platforms. What's the focus for Meta AI going into 2025 then?
Personalization is key, making it feel more tailored to you. Improving memory in chats so it remembers what you talked about before.
Oh, that'd be useful.
And better content recommendations driven by AI. Plus, internally, they have rolled out Code Compose, an AI coding assistant for their own developers to boost productivity.
Using AI to build AI faster.
Mm.
Makes sense. And weren't AI glasses mentioned somewhere in their strategy?
Yep. The Ray-Ban stories and future AI glasses are definitely a key area they highlighted. That vision of AI being integrated into wearable tech is very much part of their long-term plan.
A glimpse of the future, maybe? But it's not all perfect, right? I saw some online chatter about Meta AI saying things people didn't actually say. Hallucinating, basically.
That's definitely a concern people have raised online. Reports of the AI attributing quotes or actions to users incorrectly. That really undermines trust, which is critical if they want people to rely on these personalized AI experiences.
Yeah, accuracy and reliability are going to be huge hurdles for all these AI systems.
Hmm.
Okay, let's shift gears again. Topic 4, tariffs. Specifically, how they're affecting the tech industry. Maybe less flashy, but super important.
Absolutely. Those Section 301 tariffs on tech imports from China have been around for a while, and there was an analysis back in July 2022 that shed some light on the impact.
Okay, what did that analysis find?
Well, one interesting point was that a pretty large chunk of tech products, about 45%, actually never got hit with those Section 301 tariffs. Compare that to only 23% of non-tech goods.
So almost half of tech imports from China weren't tariffed under that specific section.
Right. But for the tech products that were targeted, a significant amount, somewhere between 30% and 40% of those imports, ended up on the list that currently have a 25% tariff.
Okay, so if your product category was hit, it was hit pretty hard with that 25% rate. Which tech areas felt it the most?
Things like connected devices, routers, network switches, those categories saw the biggest tariff burden. And interestingly, imports for those specific product types combined actually fell dramatically, from around $22 billion in 2017 down to $10 billion in 2021.
Wow, less than half. It's a massive drop. Did specific products bear the brunt?
The analysis showed that the top 15 tech products subject to the tariffs accounted for about a third of all the estimated Section 301 duties paid between 2017 and 2021.
So a concentrated impact on certain key items. And this whole tariff situation isn't static, right? There's talk of potential new tariffs.
That's right. Earlier this year, there was discussion about former President Trump potentially bringing in new tariffs if elected, even floating the idea of tariffs up to 100% on goods from Taiwan.
100% on Taiwan. Given their role in semiconductors, that sounds Disruptive, to say the least.
Hugely disruptive. The main concern is that the U.S. likely couldn't scale up its own chip manufacturing fast enough to replace Taiwan's output in the short term. Experts talk about needing years to even approach that level.
Right.
Plus, U.S. tech supply chains are just so deeply integrated with Taiwan. Pinpointing the exact impact of such a tariff would be incredibly difficult, but almost certainly severe.
It's such a complex global web. What do economic models predict about the broader effects of these kinds of tariff plans?
Well, the Penn-Wharton budget model looked at a potential plan back in April 2025. Their projection was that while it might raise significant government revenue, it could also reduce overall GDP and wages more significantly than, say, a corporate tax increase.
So potentially bad for the wider economy and household incomes.
Their model suggested most households across income levels could end up worse off, yeah.
What about consumers directly? Do tariffs automatically mean higher prices for phones, laptops, etc.?
It's complicated. Tariffs can increase consumer prices, especially with complex global supply chains. However, one study from 2021 found something interesting.
Oh, yeah?
It suggested that U.S. importers actually absorbed most of the cost of the tariffs studied. Consumer prices only seemed to be significantly impacted when tariffs were really high, like over 20%. Below that, it seemed businesses were maybe cutting margins instead of passing the full cost on.
So maybe not an immediate price spike unless the tariff is massive. But even if prices don't jump instantly, there are other potential downsides, right? Like efficiency, innovation.
Absolutely. Tariffs can lead businesses to make less efficient choices, misallocate resources. They can discourage innovation if companies are focused on navigating trade barriers.
Right.
And then there's the big risk of retaliation.
Retaliatory tariffs from other countries.
Exactly. Which disrupts trade further, hurts exporters, and can damage business confidence and investment. While some argue tariffs can strategically protect domestic industries, they can also cause the dollar to strengthen, making U.S. exports more expensive.
It's a delicate balancing act with lots of potential ripple effects. Now, I've seen discussions online about why the current Biden administration kept many of the Trump-era tariffs on China.
What are the different viewpoints on that?
It's definitely debated. Some argue it's simply the right policy. Continuing action started previously to address China's trade practices.
Yeah.
Others focus on the costs these tariffs impose on American consumers and businesses.
Right, the cost argument.
There's also the fact that economic policies take time to show their full effects, so changing course rapidly can be disruptive. Tariffs are also seen by some as leverage in negotiations with China over issues like subsidies and market access.
Using them as a bargaining chip.
And you have to consider the retaliatory tariffs China put in place. Removing U.S. tariffs without reciprocal action could be seen as weakening the U.S. position. Some also argue the current administration's approach is perhaps more targeted or strategic compared to a broader application of tariffs.
So, lots of factors. Policy continuity, costs, leverage, retaliation, strategic goals. No easy answers, clearly. Not at all. It's a complex geopolitical and economic issue.
Okay, final topic. This one feels very relevant to, well, pretty much everyone using technology today. AI's impact on our critical thinking skills. Is using AI making us less sharp?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? And a recent Microsoft study actually found a correlation suggesting that relying heavily on AI might indeed be linked to reduced critical thinking effort.
A correlation. Okay, that's important. Not necessarily causation, but a link. What did the study specifically find?
One key finding was that people who expressed higher confidence in AI's abilities tended to put less of their own critical thought into tasks. The study also suggested AI use might lead to a less diverse set of outcomes for the same task. Maybe we all start converging on the AI's suggested answer.
So less original thought, maybe more reliance on the AI's path.
It seems like the nature of critical thinking might be shifting, less about generating the initial idea or solution and more about verifying the AI's output and integrating it.
Becoming more like fact-checkers or editors of the AI.
Kind of. The study identified some barriers, too. Like, maybe we're not always aware we should be thinking critically, or we lack motivation because AI is fast, or we just don't know enough about a topic to effectively critique the AI's response.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
If you ask AI about something you know nothing about, it's hard to judge the answer's quality.
Exactly. And there's this perceived reduction in cognitive effort needed for things like recall or basic comprehension, because the AI can just do it.
Yeah.
So our effort shifts from doing the task to overseeing the AI doing the task.
Overseeing, not executing. Interesting shift. What was the reaction online? I bet this sparked some debate.
Oh, definitely. Lots of chatter on Reddit. People immediately drew parallels to other tech, like nobody memorizes phone numbers anymore, right? because our phones do.
Guilty as charged.
Some argued it's sort of pointless to remember things AI can instantly retrieve. Why clutter your brain?
The convenience argument. But were there counterpoints? People worried about this.
For sure. Some argued that while AI handles the simple stuff, it should free up our brain power for more complex, higher-stakes thinking. But others voiced concern about easy access to easy tools, potentially dulling our critical thinking muscles over time.
Like any muscle, if you don't use it.
Right. And the risk of false confidence just accepting an AI answer because it sounds plausible, even if it's wrong. It's important to remember the study showed correlation, not that AI directly kills critical thinking, as some headlines might suggest.
Good point about the headlines. Any specific examples people shared online?
Yeah, some software developers commented they've seen junior developers who rely heavily on AI coding assistants sometimes struggle more with debugging complex problems on their own.
Interesting. They lean on the assistant too much?
Potentially. There's the risk of just copy-pasting AI code without fully understanding why it works or its limitations, especially with niche or complex systems where the AI might not have perfect knowledge.
Yeah, understanding the why is key.
People also made comparisons to calculators affecting mental math skills, or social media impacting attention spans. It's part of a broader conversation about how technology shapes our cognition. Some educators chimed in saying they've already been seeing and discussing this potential impact.
So it's not a totally new concern, just amplified by powerful AI like ChatGPT.
Exactly. And with tools like Copilot getting integrated directly into work environments, it's becoming unavoidable. One user asked a good question. Does using ChatGPT to explain things for learning also hinder critical thinking?
That's a great question, using it as a tutor versus just getting the answer.
Bro. The consensus seems to be that the how matters. If you're engaging with the explanation, questioning it, verifying it, maybe it's fine. If you're just passively accepting it, maybe not. Being critical of the AI's output is still paramount.
Be critical, verify sources, engage your brain. Sounds like good advice for the AI age.
Be the driver, not the passenger, as someone online put it.
I like that. Okay, that wraps up our whirlwind tour of the week's top tech trends. From GPT-4's image skills to the Switch 2 buzz, Meta's huge AI bets, the complexities of tariffs, and how AI might be changing how we think.
It really covers a lot of ground, shows how fast things are moving in so many different areas of tech.
Absolutely. Hopefully this deep dive gave you some useful insights and maybe a few things to chew on.
Yeah, definitely lots to think about, especially with AI becoming so interwoven into everything.
That's it for this week. If you enjoyed the episode, hey, why not like, comment, share, or subscribe? We love hearing from you and diving into these fun tech discussions.
See you next time.